Hi everyone, welcome back. When multiple media outlets repeat the same word, chilling, 6 times in 6 articles, when you're left with more questions than answers, then you know something's not quite right. Is Dezi Freeman a dangerous sovereign citizen? Or is that just a label that Victoria Police and the media want you to believe? Or are their claims backed by fact? Today I'm going to break this down from what's publicly available. No spin, no bullshit, just the facts, the law, the questions that no journalist seems to want to ask. I'm going to start by just letting you in on a little secret. I have a pretty low opinion of our media. It's not because of the way that their faces look or because they all sound and look the same, but because there seems to be a complete lack of interest in real, unbiased, independent journalism, where journalists ask real questions and they demand real answers on behalf of the people. Ideally, the media is supposed to inform us. It's to hold power accountable and to give a voice to the people. But in practice, it often becomes a tool to direct attention, to control narratives, and to manufacture consent. It can be used for us, and it can also be used against us. Now, I'd rather place my head in a blast furnace than watch the news, than listen to the radio or talk back radio or any of that sort of stuff. There's no substance. There's a severe lack of thorough investigative journalism. Look at this Dezi Freeman case. Have you seen the press conferences with police? Have you heard some of the questions that the media have been asking? We'll go through some of them. Look, I'm only speculating here, but I get the impression that journalists who attend these press conferences are given a list of approved questions. Now, this list might include a curly one, where the respondent, whether it be a police officer or whether it be a politician, can put on a show and act offended, which would give us the impression that the media are willing to put the powers that be under the grill. I'll give you an example. A member of the media asked the commissioner, the chief police commissioner, why is it so hard for up 450 police to track down Dezi? Now, the commissioner was reported in the media as snapping back at the question as though he was somehow offended. And his response was basically, because the terrain's pretty tough. Look, that's not a tough question, in my opinion. What kind of question is that? What about the million more questions that are unanswered? The questions, to me, are unhelpful and unenlightening, almost choreographed so as not to disturb a particular narrative. Here's a couple of publicly available questions the media have asked the police. When did police last see Dezi Freeman, and when was that? How many police officers are currently involved in the search? What is Victoria Police's message to the public, especially those who may be harbouring or assisting Dezi Freeman? What challenges are police facing in the terrain, whether it's geographic or the search area in general? Now look, these aren't, I'm not going to say that they're bad questions, but they're quite a bit shallow, in my opinion. And I'm not an expert, but with a case like this, many questions spring to mind. If I was in the media, I'd ask questions like this. So beyond police allegations, what evidence does police hold to confirm Dezi shot 3 police officers? What mistakes or oversights have occurred in the search so far, now that it's been 30 days? 10 police officers arrived at the property, at Dezi Freeman's property, to execute a search warrant on the day of the shooting. Has anything incriminating been found by police? After Dezi escaped into the bush, how long after his escape were roadblocks set up and rivers cordoned off? And at what radius? What specific evidence do police have to justify labelling Dezi Freeman a sovereign citizen? Can Victoria Police provide us with a definition of what a sovereign citizen actually is? Is there any documented evidence where Dezi himself has specifically declared himself to be a sovereign citizen? Does labelling someone a sovereign citizen prejudice public opinion before trial? Is there any documented evidence where Dezi has specifically stated anything along the lines of, "The law does not apply to me"? Look, there's many more questions that I'm sure a lot of us have out there, but today, none of this is being asked. Instead, what we have is what appears to me to be a drip-fed narrative, a trial by media. Let's just seriously imagine for a moment. I have no idea who Dezi is for a start, only what I've seen online. That's his videos that are all publicly available. That's the arrest of the magistrate. It's available online. His incident with the police, which is the COVID era video in the park. His rant about police in front of the court. He's quite obviously not very happy in that rant video. He does call police, I believe he calls them thugs, Nazis. Well, the fact is that lots of people call police nasty names. But what do? Do we jail all of these people? Are they all criminals just because they call someone a nasty name? But when you contrast that in the court video, he doesn't appear aggressive. He's firm but respectful in the court. It doesn't look like in that video he gets charged by the magistrate for any kind of contempt of court. He's just asked to leave, which he does. But let's just speculate that 6 months pass and somehow new evidence comes out that Freeman is actually not guilty. Now, I'm certainly not saying that he is or he isn't guilty. I make no claims. But hypothetically speaking, what would that do to him? How many people have slandered this man online? How many people have already declared him guilty? I've seen all kinds of comments online. Wait till they shoot the worm. He's got what's coming to him. He's an animal, yes, because what did they hear? They heard alleged double cop killer, armed and dangerous, terrifying, community on edge. He's a crazed gunman, horrifying. Well, is he? I don't know if he is or he isn't. But the last time I checked, he isn't before the courts. No evidence has been put before the courts. So how do we know anything? Does the phrase innocent until proven guilty mean anything of relevance in 2025? Think about that for a second. The law doesn't allow the police or the media to declare or to decide whether anyone is guilty. The law only allows the courts to do that. Police bring their allegations, they bring their charges. Some police will bring as many charges as physically possible and as severe as possible also, with the hope that some will at least stick. That's what they do. Look, that's their job. They don't decide guilt though, the court does. And that's the law. The police are the prosecution, they're prosecutors. They prosecute as many as they can. They'll charge you and they will do everything they can to have you plead guilty. But they can never declare anyone guilty of anything. Only the courts can. And the media will be right there beside the police to do everything they can to make you look as bad as possible so that they get the headline. The media are there to give us spin, confusion, repetition, and contradiction. They use the term alleged to protect themselves against defamation. When the public keep hearing alleged double murderer, alleged police killer, well, that paints a pretty clear picture, doesn't it? Like I said earlier, I found 6 articles that all use the same descriptive word over and over, the word chilling. Chilling. Ooh, another chilling Dezi Freeman update. Let's see, we were chilling. Ooh, it's chilling. Dezi Freeman's chilling text, chilling footage, chilling photos. You'd think professional journalists could maybe mix up the language a little bit. But like I said earlier, to me, it suggests news stories or articles are carefully worded before publication or distribution and then trickle down through various corporate outlets, which ultimately gets spat out to us. All the news reporters, at least to me, sound exactly the same. The scripts seem rehearsed. It's a performance more than anything else. It's certainly not good journalism from what I was taught. So the media and the police have slapped the label sovereign citizen on Dezi. But what does sovereign citizen actually mean? Is there a clear definition? And more importantly, does what we know about Dezi, publicly available, actually line up with that definition? So first of all, just with the sovereign citizen term, the term itself contradicts itself. You can't be sovereign and a citizen at the same time. You're one or you're the other, but you're not both. In any case, the general definition is a person who rejects the legitimacy of government, police. They claim they're exempt from laws, taxes, court authority, all that sort of stuff. They refuse to recognise the courts. They refuse to pay fines, taxes. They use a lot of the pseudo-legal jargon. You probably heard, I don't consent. They have a belief that laws only apply if you consent or if you contract with them. So then let's compare that checklist with what's publicly available on Dezi. In his videos, and I'm not sure I've watched all of them, there may be others that I've missed, but from what I can see, he doesn't appear to say in any of them, the law doesn't apply to me. He cites legislation. In the court video, he uses section 458 of the Crimes Act when he's attempting to arrest the magistrate and then the police officer afterwards. He also uses section 176 of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act when asking an authorised officer to identify herself before she was giving him any directions. So he tries to use the law against authority figures he believes are breaking the law from the look of these videos. Now that doesn't appear to be someone who's rejecting the law. That appears to be someone who is trying to invoke the law. So arguably he's not behaving like a sovereign citizen. He's behaving like what I'd describe as a hyper-legalist. He's following the law to a T. And he's trying to use it against people in the system who he believes are not following the law. So I just don't believe that sovereign citizen is an appropriate way to reference this man, at least not according to the generally understood definition. It qualifies him more as someone trying to use the law against authority. He obviously believes that many in authority are not following the law. So how does he think he's exempt from the law if he's trying to actually uphold it? In this section 458, this is where he arrested the magistrate and the police in the Myrtleford court, I believe it was. It says in plain English, any person can arrest without warrant if they find someone committing an offence or if they reasonably believe someone has committed an offence or is escaping after committing an offence. But the arrest must be necessary and they must deliver the person to police quickly. That's what section 458 says. So the problem with this is it sounds like it was designed for citizens stopping an assault, theft or something dangerous, not for turning the law back on judges or police. So if you apply section 458 against a magistrate in their own court, you get a legal paradox, obviously. The law technically permits a citizen's arrest, but courts also hold the power of contempt and authority over all proceedings. So Dezi arrested the magistrate and then ordered the police to enforce the arrest. Why didn't the magistrate charge him with contempt? I think contempt might be discretionary from the judge, but it requires a clear interruption or disobedience of the court's authority. A magistrate could have easily found him in contempt, but that usually results in instant removal or even imprisonment. I don't know. It doesn't appear that he was. Instead, the magistrate and the police de-escalated. So this shows the practical reality. Law on paper, which is section 458, meets law in practice, which is maintaining order. Section 458 creates like a theoretical loophole. I guess anyone can try and arrest anyone, even an authority figure. It has to be done lawfully, obviously. But that's if they feel that an offence is happening. If they see an offence, a criminal offence, an indictable or a summary offence happening. But in practice, the system prevents chaos by giving courts and police discretion. That's why I think Dezi's action in the court was legally, maybe systemically, shaky. He's using the letter of the law in a way that breaks the function of the law. So I think here's the reality. Dezi hasn't proven himself a sovereign citizen. What he's shown himself to be is someone who uses the law in ways that clash with how it actually operates in practice. On paper, section 458 looks like a weapon that anyone could just go out and use, but in reality, if you try to use it against the magistrate or police, the system itself will absorb it, ignore it, and push it out of the room. That's the gap between theory and practice, which makes me wonder, is Dezi actually exposing flaws in the way the law is written itself? Or is he exposing how fragile our justice system is? You know, when someone refuses to play by the usual rules. Let's have a look at the other moment in one of Dezi's videos, and that was with the authorised officer over the pandemic era. Now, the law here is very clear in section 176, the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. It says every authorised officer must be issued an identity card, and if asked, they must produce that card for inspection before they give a direction, before they make a requirement, or before they exercise any power. Pretty simple, right? So if you're an authorised officer, you're going to tell someone what to do. Under the Act, you need to basically show them who you are first if they ask. But here's what actually happened. Dezi asked for the officer's name. The officer just flat out refused over and over again. Dezi then presses harder, saying, "I'll give you my name once you follow the law and give me yours." So that's not refusal. That doesn't sound like he's refusing. It sounds like he's expecting a sequence. He wasn't saying, "I'm not going to comply" or "I won't comply." He was saying, "You go first because that's what the law says that you have to do." The officer, for whatever reason, ignored it, tried to flip it on him. She demanded his name, threatened arrest because he wouldn't go first. Dezi then tried to arrest her for breaching section 176, and it turned out obviously a complete circus. Two people both trying to use the law on each other and neither willing to step back. Eventually, he runs off. And he got away from what it looks like. The two cops possibly were a little overweight and just waddled across the park and lost him. So technically, if you read the Act, Dezi was right. The officer should have produced her identity first when asked, but it's that reality again. In practice, the system doesn't like being boxed in by its own rules. Authority's going to win by default. So on paper, Dezi might have the stronger legal footing, but in the real world, the system just bulldozes straight through it. What about this search warrant? The 10 police who attended. Police say they went to execute a search warrant in relation to alleged historical sex offences. Nothing's been proven, of course. These are simply allegations that have been widely reported. Did the police find anything in the bus to nail him on it? After Dezi left off into the bush, police would have presumably had all of the time in the world to search for everything and anything. Did they find anything? We don't really have to know exactly what it was that they found, but at least we should know if police actually got something to pin him with after all of this mess that we've just been through. The other one is the body camera footage. People are asking and demanding online that police release the body cam footage. All right, well, hang on. Police are not going to release body camera footage of the deaths and serious injury of their officers. They're not going to do that. They never would. I don't think they should. It's graphic, violent, disturbing. But what they could confirm is whether or not the body cameras were operational at the time, whether they are being held as evidence, and whether they will be produced as evidence in the courts in due course. That's all we need to hear, right? But nothing. Instead, we've got a Daily Mail reporter who said she's viewed a full 27-minute video, which was apparently recorded by a family member on the bus and that got leaked somehow. We don't really still get any clarity in what she actually saw. We can't see that video from what I understand. According to her, an officer climbed through the bus window, then a couple of shots were fired, and that's all she saw. So despite all of the articles that get released pretty much on a daily basis from various outlets, we're still all in the dark. The other thing I want to say is there's reports that Dezi said he was a Christian. And I have read some reports, I don't know how true they are, that he was invoking the name of Jesus on the bus, and he was commanding these officers to get out in Jesus' name. Well, this is interesting because shooting police officers is not something that people who follow Jesus typically would be doing. So it is another very interesting question. Look, these are just some of my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.